Hi, welcome back to the Barley Lads. I'm Bryce, and this is Zane. And today, we're doing a comparison between the Elijah Craig Small Batch and the Elijah Craig Rona Lisa.
So these both have the same mash bill. We're talking 78% corn, 12% barley, and 10% rye. These are both obviously out of the Bernheim, the Heaven Hill Bernheim Distillery in not Lexington.
It's Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville,
Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky. But these are both aged again in the Bardstown area for the Elijah Craig barrel houses. So the Rona Lisa, if you watched the review of this, is coming from the Cows or the Central Ohio Whiskey Society here in the Columbus area. They were able to get a single barrel offering from Elijah Craig. There were only 192 bottles produced, and I was able to get my hands on one of them, thankfully. So we're going to try and pick out the subtleties between the two. Obviously, being from Elijah Craig, they're going to be very similar, but I think we're going to start with the original small batch. Yeah. Okay. So
this is a small batch. Original. So small batch means that it was aged, or there was a group of 200 barrels that were blended.
Yeah. So originally it was the Elijah Craig small batch was a 12-year bourbon. But when they transitioned to a non-age statement, they also transitioned, I think at the same time, from 100 barrels in their small batch to 200 barrels. So their small batch became a bigger small batch. So what do you get on? Sorry, go ahead. What do you get on the nose?
Very rich on the nose for me. Like molasses.
Yeah.
How about you?
For me, you definitely get again, some classic bourbon notes of caramel and vanilla, but I still pick up some cinnamon.
Cinnamon.
Yeah. It has a decent finish. If I remember correctly, the Rona Lisa has a longer finish, but...
Yeah, really get a strong vanilla on the finish on this one.
Elijah Craig, the Heaven Hill Distillery, also produces Evan Williams, so that entire line. So between the two, I think they produce Larceny and a few other bigger brands. So they produce I think they're the second largest producer of bourbon in the U.S. Obviously the U.S. because it's bourbon.
So why did they take a group of 200 barrels? You think it's just to support a higher volume? And then I guess why did they blend barrels in the first place?
Interesting question. It completely depends on the distillery.
Okay.
So when you're going to see small batch a lot with bourbons, we tasted the Florida, the St. Augustine, much smaller distillery. They're barreling. When they blend barrels, you're talking 16 to 40 barrels. That for me is a small batch. When you're talking 100 to 200 barrels, for me, that makes me think that when they increased it, it was to probably help with keeping a similar taste profile. And it could be that so they can blend more younger whiskey with some of the older 12-year-old whiskey to, again, help keep that similar profile. When you could probably put in 100, 150 barrels of the 8-9-year-old with maybe 50. Now, I don't know this. This could be completely wrong. If you want to correct me, please do. But I would assume it's to, still get similar flavors to that 12-year. Yeah.
Do you think? So they increase from 100
Mm-hmm.
barrels per small batch to 200 barrels per small batch. And you had mentioned to me before that barrels on the top of the rick house
Mm-hmm.
and the bottom of the rick house age at different rates.
Yeah.
So do you think the increase in barrels could be to support a larger rick house and have a different
potentially
blend through it?
Yeah. I think I understand what you're saying.
See what I'm saying?
Yes, I don't. For them, I don't know if they have changed their rick house sizes. That's a great question. I don't know. When we're talking about bigger distilleries, that potentially could be the case. I do know that you're gonna age barrels longer at the bottom, so you're not pulling as much of the wood tannin flavors out. You can over oak a whiskey very quickly. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. You can over oak it very quickly if it's at the top. That's also why they use the size of the 53 gallon barrels. You can use smaller barrels and age them faster. But the issue with that is you have more wood to liquor or whiskey contact, and which is why they sell mini barrels. I have a mini barrel. Bryce is talking about getting a mini barrel, and it's a fun experiment to have. But I made the mistake of over aging a whiskey in a mini barrel because it has such a high whiskey to wood contact in such a small space. You can over age it very, very quickly. So yes, potentially it could be that they built bigger rick houses, or at least certainly more rick houses. I know a lot of bourbon distilleries are doing that in the Kentucky or just general U.S. area. Ireland and the Irish whiskey is also growing exponentially right now, so they're building rick houses as fast as they can fill them with whiskey. So your question is certainly valid. So let's move on to the Rona Lisa. Like I said, though, this was specifically bottled for the Central Ohio Whiskey Society. For me, incredible value for a single barrel. Most times, unless it's an Evan Williams single barrel, which you can get for about $30, most single barrels you're looking at 40, 50, or well beyond that in terms of price for a single barrel offering. At $31, this was an incredible value. And for me, like I said, I have had small batch before. It is a superior whiskey. So, you've been nosing, you've been tasting. Give me your thoughts.
So immediately, I notice on the taste, very strong, much stronger than the original, a much stronger oak influence.
Okay. So potentially, well, kind of like what we were talking about, higher in the rick house, could be. I talked in the review that this was one of 3 barrels that was tasted by the group that ended up picking it. It was also the youngest barrel. They tasted a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old barrel as well. So with that in mind, realistically, given that they thought that this had the most flavor of them, it probably was higher in the rick house. I think it was also the highest in alcohol content of the 3 as well, which would probably also mean that it was higher in the rick house, because I think when you're aging a whiskey, the higher the heat, the more water evaporation you might have versus alcohol evaporation, or the angel share, as they say. So,
yeah. So, interestingly enough, you said it was the one with the more flavor.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely picked that up. It's definitely got a much stronger flavor compared to the original.
Mm-hmm. Now this is 94 proof, and so it's the exact same amount of alcohol. For me, it does have a little bit more burn, not off-putting burn certainly, but spicier, oilier, more tongue coating.
It is spicier, but as I drink it, the oak starts to fade, and I start to get a lot more of the sweeter flavor. Mm-hmm. As kind of my palate gets used to the burn and the oak, the sweeter flavors start to come through.
Yeah. It for me, it has more of a what word I'm looking for, old flavor to it, like leathery tobacco hint. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what I'm picking up, but yeah.
But so, did you say we know how old this single barrel is?
8.
8 years old.
8. So the small batch should be older, and then obviously still a blend, but the overall component should be older.
Another comment I wanted to add earlier when we were talking about, it's soaking up more higher in the rick house because it's hotter, you get more evaporation. You get a lot more expansion of the wood at the higher temperatures, just
Absolutely.
sucking in into the pores of the wood, just sucking in the whiskey, and you get a lot more of the influence that way.
Wood tannins. Yeah.
Wood tannins.
Yeah. Kind of like when they talk about tannins in wine. Wood. That's where you get the dryness in whiskey. Yeah. Honestly, the regular small batch is almost, when you go back and forth, it's almost muted. Still very good, but it doesn't have the same punch. It doesn't have the same aroma.
Yeah, absolutely. I just took a sip of the original.
Yeah.
The flavor from the Rona is definitely there.
The Rona. Also, can we just love on this beautiful image with the Mona Lisa wearing a mask? If you're watching this in 10 years from now, well, you probably still remember the pandemic, but so this has been a very interesting bottling from them. I'm glad that they have been able to continue these barrel selections throughout COVID. I'm hoping to still be able to pick up some new bottles this way, because it's an interesting way of finding different flavor components in what is kind of the same whiskey. It's still labeled as an Elijah Craig small batch, but yeah, it's just it has different subtle flavors that hopefully, the more that you're trying whiskey with us, hopefully you are also picking up those subtle differences, and not just with the mash bill, but the things that you pick up with single barrels that you just can't pick up with between different distilleries, because these are basically they're very similar in flavor components.
So while we're on the topic of the name, did the Central Ohio Whiskey Society name it, or did Heaven Hill name it?
We did. Well, not we. I actually didn't vote on this one, but this was voted on by the group. So whenever they do a single barrel pick, what they will do is they will put up a Facebook post with, you could enter your own names. You can enter your own things to vote on. So there are a couple of other funny ones. One of the previous bottlings was for, I think it was a rye whiskey, and it was called When the Cows Come Home. Cows being Central Ohio Whiskey Society. So they play on that name a lot, but with us being in what we'll call the COVID era, Rona Lisa was the top choice, and I can't imagine a better name for a whiskey in 2021. Certainly in April, when this was bottled in January of 2021, a better name for a whiskey, a single barrel offering in this era. So
this was bottled in January?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, actually, you picked this up for me in February.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Okay, was it okay?
Maybe it was March. Doesn't matter.
It was March.
Either way, the barrel was picked, I think, in late 2020.
Okay.
So it was bottled in early 2021.
So the name was voted on
in 2020.
They picked the barrel.
Yep.
And yeah.
Yep.
It's a good name.
Yeah.
What a way to remember. Or forget.
After this bottle is finished, I'm going to keep that for probably forever as a keepsake, so it's pretty cool. Thank you again for watching an episode of the Barley Lads. I've been Zane. This has been Bryce. This has been a comparison of the Elijah Craig Small Batch and the single barrel offering of the Rona Lisa. Please like and subscribe. Make sure to hit the notification bell to get notifications when we post new videos like this. And always leave comments to let us know how we're doing, whether you want some more information on the offerings that we have, or if you are looking at different things, we will happily give you some feedback on those bottles or brands or distilleries or anything like that. So, cheers.